Welcome to this episode of On the Sidelines. John Luck, Brad McKinnon, Jonathan Rodriguez back with us for episode number 2. Didn't scare him away last week. Decided to show back up.
Great addition.
Yeah.
Great addition.
Better than that other guy. We'll see if he's actually watching now.
He was just in the hallway. Well, why wasn't he sitting down? Yeah, Dom, where are you, huh? Back to the show, folks.
There you go. I like that. Good transition. Let's open up with the New England Patriots as it's yet another just whooping put on against the New England Patriots. This time 30-13 was the final, but I think the bigger story here is the quarterback play for the New England Patriots. Before we came on, Brad, you were talking about Jacoby Brissett and that pick six when he threw it basically to Fred Warner as a bonus wide receiver, and you asked where was he throwing that to? And that was kind of just a microcosm of Jacoby Brissett's season.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I mean, that play did not make me happy seeing because, like you just said, yeah, he's under pressure, he's scrambling around, but you throw it right at Fred. You know, how can you not pick that? But if you really looked at the play, for once, 3 Patriots wide receivers were all wide open. Right
Douglas
around
was
area.
Probably the closest, and he was 15 yards away.
But everyone was wide open, and this dude just gives the other team 6 points instead of us at least the 4 yards or 5 yards that we might get, you know, with him throwing.
So Jacoby Brissett on the day was 19 of 32 passing, 168 yards with a touchdown and interception. But we continue to point out the sacks that he takes, and he got sacked 6 times for a loss of 25 yards. And for the New England Patriots, Gerard Mayo talked about this in his press conference. You're not going to win if you turn the ball over as many times as the Patriots have, but you're also not going to win if you get your quarterback killed behind the line of scrimmage 6 times.
Yeah, I agree. We have a very one-dimensional quarterback at the moment. So the fact that the air yards on the football only go 4 yards down the field, that's concerning. Our offensive line not being able to block, super concerning. And then I'm also just seeing our D-line not creating enough pressure. Purdy was back there. He basically had time to read a book, probably do his contract negotiations, and plenty of other time just to sit back there and just pick us apart. And it's absolutely crazy. I think the only bright spot in the whole game I saw, to be honest with you, was Christian Gonzalez. Christian Gonzalez looks like an absolute stud and shut down corner, and it's actually like makes me sad that he's playing at this all-pro level and the rest of the team is just playing at this all-poor level.
I 100% back that statement on Gonzalez. I know it's your second show, but just about every week I bring him up and how he did and how he's doing. And I mean, it was another great showing from him. And it is sad that, I mean, no one else wants to do anything on the defense, in my opinion. I will say one good thing about the Pats, too, on top of that, is at least our special teams isn't a complete disaster like everything else. I mean, we can get a long field goal, we just found out, and our punting team's pretty good, too. But that's not really what's going to win you a game.
You don't go to games, so watch
that's
the
one
punters.
positive to look at. You know, we at least have a decent special teams team because there are 3 different offense, defense, and special teams. I know special teams is the lowest on the ranking, but at least we have something right. You know.
So you mentioned Jacoby Brissett's longest air yards pass was, 4 or something like that?
4 yards.
How about this? New England is last in the NFL. Among all 32 teams, they are last with 4 passing plays of 20-plus yards. All right, let's go down a little further here. They're tied for last with 4 total touchdowns. Not 4 touchdowns in, road games or 4 touchdowns in a 2-game span. 4 touchdowns in 4 games. They are tied for last, but don't worry, they got good company. They're tied with Denver, who has Bo Nix and, that abomination of a football game in the Meadowlands. And they're also tied with the Miami Dolphins. Okay, now, Exhibit C here for the Patriots' demise. They're last in the NFL, again, among all 32 teams, including Carolina. They are last in the NFL with 558 receiving yards. And the next closest team to them, the Chargers, who are in front of the Patriots by 44 yards. Jacoby Brissett, it feels like we're doing this repeatedly here, but each week we have to look at Brissett because he is the cog that makes everything go in the offense. When you're going 6 of 15 on third down, 6 of 16 on third down, 2 of 11 on third down, 5 of 16 on third down, you're not giving the offense the best chance to win. The total offensive yards, the most they have is 310. That was against Seattle. You're seeing the scores on the bottom of the screen here. You'll see some of the offensive yards in the 400s, approaching 500. Patriots are barely getting over 300. They did that once. Continuously, Jacoby Brissett is getting killed behind the line of scrimmage. We're seeing him dealing with the offensive line issues. Now David Andrews is out with shoulder surgery for the rest of the season. Caden Wallace, we all know about him. He was injured in that game as well. But we have to continue looking forward here. 3 of the next 4 games are at Gillette Stadium. How important are these games for the Patriots, knowing that fan perception of this team is continuing to dwindle? You're 1-3. That could very easily turn into 1-5 as you head across the pond to take on the Jaguars.
Yeah, so it was insulting in the beginning of the season when you heard Mayo say that like Jacoby won the job and it was because he was like the better quarterback, because everywhere you've seen Jacoby play, no slight to him or anything, but his play style is very like, I'm going to manage this game as best as possible. I'm going to throw 0 to 1 interception and turn over the ball as least as possible, and I'm just going to barely win us this game. And that's what he's been, and it's sometimes that's what you need for a team just to get by. But us, we don't have anything further than Ramondre being paid like a top 5 running back, but can't play like one behind that line, or a quarterback that can't like throw the ball down the field. So you're bringing that home to your now consumers, to the people that pay those season ticket prices, that pay for the hot dogs, everything like that.
$50 to park.
Yeah, and now this is what you're bringing them. Like, hey, we hope you're good with this for the season. And personally, like, I'd be upset if I'm paying all that money and I'd come to a stadium and I see like this is the product you're giving, and you were trying to give us as a fan base, oh, this is our best chance to win. No, it's not. And I'm not saying the kid Drake May would do any better behind that line, but like sometimes you just got to throw somebody out there and see what sticks. And I mean, I hope that at some point he gets a chance to like see what he has, and hopefully he can make more plays. But it's very hard to like want to sit in that stadium and just watch that product and be like, yay, I'm here and I'm a Patriots fan.
Kendrick Bourne is rumored to come back for the game against Miami. If he's not there, he will definitely play against Houston. But still, it's very depressing if you're a fan going into Gillette Stadium, I think. And this is the product that they're putting on the field right now. We'll talk about it a little bit later on here with Oakland. But it feels like we're starting to tread with a tone-deaf owner and a buffoon calling the shots in the general manager's role. And that's really dicey when you're playing 3 of the next 4 games in Foxborough in front of your home fans that we know from the past have had frustration with, playing going back to the 90s and the 80s. They've seen depressing times. They don't want to see that again, but we're seeing it right now.
Oh, 100%. Before we wrap up, I just want to say, New England fans, the only thing I think we have to look forward to right now is a draft pick. I really do think it is. I mean, we've had 3 years at least to work on our offensive line, and we've had 2 quarterbacks since then. So it does show there's definitely something going on in management too, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I did want to add, it's kind of funny that you mentioned all that, because I was listening to this interview on that Bill Belichick had with McAfee, and they were talking about Gerard Mayo said that he had a plan. And I thought it was very hilarious how Bill Belichick decided to say, well, I don't know what the plan would be. You were just the head coach last year. This whole mess, realistically, I know like Gerard Mayo might not be doing the best job at it, but this whole mess was started because Bill Belichick didn't know how to like competently run an offense. And now we're here, and you got him on national television saying, yeah, like if that's the plan, like they're in a really bad spot right now, but I don't really know what the plan is.
That's just a disgruntled employee. I mean, he basically gets railroaded out the door by Bob Kraft in favor of Gerard Mayo, who has basically been in Kraft's back pocket for a few years now. And, I mean, what's Belichick going to say? Well, if I was the coach of the Patriots, I would do A, B, and C, because you could turn around in 2 games and go, Gerard Mayo did this, which is what Belichick said. He did that. Are we dealing with Belichick 2.0? The issue with Bill is he's going to get scrutinized for everything that he says, both on McAfee and on Inside the NFL and probably on the Manning cast if the Patriots ever are good enough to be on Monday Night Football. But the issue for me is for years this team used to be in the upper echelon of NFL teams with the likes of Denver with Peyton Manning, Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes. Now you're basically down with the worst teams in the NFL. You're basically racing with Carolina in Denver, but Denver actually has a reputable quarterback because they went to the rookie at the start of the season. Right now, it just feels like the Patriots are kind of the sputtering ship that's just, circling in the ocean.
100%.
We'll take a quick break here. The Boston Red Sox season is over. Thank God for that. They didn't do as bad as we thought they would, but...
I said over, all right? I said over.
Okay, you know the Red Sox. I don't. We'll just continue to, dump on the Red Sox coming up next.
76% of employees have struggled with at least one issue that affected their mental health. When you share, you're not alone.
All good things must come to an end, or in the case of the Red Sox, all mediocre things must come to an end. The Red Sox tried their hardest to end the season at 81-81, avoiding a third straight under 500 season. They finished with a 500 record for the 4th time in team history. Let's put a bow on this, because to say this was a roller coaster is an understatement. Dumpster fire may be too harsh. Success, obviously, probably not the right word. What can we say about this season for the Boston Red Sox? Or as you call them, the Boston Red Sox.
You didn't have to say that. That was off camera. But anyways, they did better than I thought. When we talked about the over and unders that I just brought up a minute ago, I said they might get a game or 2 over. So yeah, they got like 5 or 6 more games than I thought they would. But they had a lot of potential to do even better than that. They just kind of fell apart after the All-Star break, and it was just sad to see. I mean, we live in Boston. We love to see the Red Sox do good. We love to see them beat the Yankees on the weekends and all that, but you didn't get too much of that this year. And I mean, it's sad to see, and I mean, we'll be talking about ownership in a little bit, but that's definitely still my biggest problem with the Red Sox organization for sure. I mean, as long as we can keep Durant hanging around, unless he'll probably go to the Dodgers
that
for
could be questionable.
millions of dollars. But there's not the worst future ahead. I think the Red Sox have a better future than the Patriots right now, so that's one way to put it.
I have a better future than the Patriots right now.
Yeah, I think I might too.
How about you?
Yeah, kind of the same sentiments that you had. So I looked it up, and the Red Sox have the 3rd best farm system. So I think our future looks good, and we have a lot of good left-handed hitting.
Which
so
we need.
Yes. So I think we look like we have a good future. It's just what it's ownership and what we do with the off season. Because we went into last season, and I felt like a lot of the sentiment around last season was like we weren't going to have a good year. So then when we started off the way we did, and then Duran was doing what he was doing, like there was a lot of optimism and like what we could do last season. And then, as you said, fell apart after All-Star break. Mm-hmm. But there is silver linings I'm seeing with the Red Sox. So when you have the 3rd best farm system, when you have a lot of good left-handed hitting, I think you have the makings of like a lot of trade pieces and seeing what you can do, and hopefully ownership does put money into the team, because there's an expectation for all New England and Boston sports, and we all know what it is, championships.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully this time next year, we're talking about the Red Sox in the postseason. So
I mean, I hope they spend. I mean, let's be honest. Basketball, they spend. They pay luxury tax, but they can win when they spend. I'll tell you one thing, as a big hockey fan, I'd love to have a luxury tax out there. We'd probably be a lot more stacked up here in Boston.
You could afford a goalie. We'll get to that later on.
I'm off.
Here's my thing with the Boston Red Sox. Alex Cora is a good manager. We've known that going back to 2017, 2018. But he continues to play matchups too early because that's the only way he can win these games, grinding things out, winning the pitching battles, going to a Chris Martin or Justin Slayton in the 6th or 7th inning because you're facing a right-handed batter. These matchups are great, but the issue is when you do this in June and July, you're going to kill your bullpen. And you can't afford to do that. I mean, season after season after season. It's the same exact thing with the Boston Red Sox. They need relief pitching. They need hitting. They need stuff at the trade deadline. Unfortunately, when you have ownership that just wants to basically have, a mediocre impact, that only goes so far. Looking at the Red Sox this season, they were 9th in home runs for the team at 194, 9th in RBI, 724, 6th in batting average, so mediocre. Same with the pitching stats, 17th in team ERA, 12th in home runs allowed. And it's hard for me to see the Red Sox ownership continuing to try and salvage any sort of success out of, 2025 or 26. You mentioned the prospects that the Red Sox are going to have in the future. I mean, that's great. But with this ownership and Craig Breslow, we've seen them flip great prospects for, mediocre players. You look at the Mookie Betts trade. What have we gotten out of that? I think Connor Wong is the last player. But, I mean, it's just difficult for me to see any sort of long-term success. And going into the offseason here, the Red Sox do have some free agents. They're also going into arbitration. The free agents, Martin, Pivetta, O'Neill, Jansen. But arbitration, this is when it could get interesting. Tanner Houck, Cutter Crawford, and Jarren Duran. All three of those players each made under $1 million. You're not going to get that again for the 2025 season. So, again, we're going to be met with the situation. Will John Henry continue to reach into his wallet and pay for this homegrown talent?
You say continue to reach into his wallet? I hate to be ignorant and interrupt you there, but continue?
We've seen him go into his pocket for mediocre reasons. Like, he's not going to reach into his pocket to pay a Mookie Betts. But, I think someone like a Cutter Crawford, he would extend no problem because that would be $1 million or $2 million. So maybe continue is a bad choice of words. But
I just had to give you crap.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You're holding me accountable. That's what this show is all about. We're holding each other accountable. The top Red Sox prospects you have are Marcelo Mayer, a shortstop, Roman Anthony, an outfielder, Kyle Teel, a catcher, Christian Campbell is a utility player, kind of like Ceddanne Rafaela. Going through this, Mayer or Story are going to have to play second, but then you're going to have to move Von Grissom around, so you might have to do a little maneuvering there. Roman Anthony is an outfielder. He'll probably play next season, I think. Kyle Teel will probably play. Christian Campbell, again, is a utility player. But in ownership's minds, do they view these players as viable options for next season or viable options for trades to try and continue to get more assets? Because that's all this has been this season. The past 4 or 5 seasons has been about growing, the farm system, the assets, and basically trying to play Moneyball or Tampa Bay baseball. And that's all this ownership is. When we look at the MLB free agents, Juan Soto, Corbin Burns, Blake Snell, big-name free agents. I don't know if the Red Sox would even make a play for some of these guys, but I think Corbin Burns is the guy that the Red Sox need to go after. The 2021 Cy Young Award winner and a great player for the Baltimore Orioles this season. Pitched in Game 1 of the Wild Card Series, came up short, allowed 1 earned run. That was a result. But still, I think starting pitching is the biggest need for the Red Sox next season.
100% it is. And, number 2, as we've both said, is left-handed hitters. Or left swinger. You get what I'm saying.
Let's talk about ownership. Not being cheap or cowards. let's talk about ownership being decent people. So, Joe Castiglione retired as the Red Sox voice on radio after 42 seasons. This goes back to, my math's awful, so it goes back to the
Bambino curse is still going in that time, for crying out loud, all right?
Joe Castiglione, the voice of the Red Sox for 42 years, has covered up for ownership being cheap and, has made it PC friendly, PR friendly. The Red Sox having a difficult season instead of saying our idiot owner is too cheap to actually get what we need. Tom Warner was at the Castiglione ceremony on this past Sunday when we were recording. We saw Alex Cora there. He had all the players go up to the top step of the dugout and take their caps off for Joe in the 8th inning. But this idiot, John Henry, was nowhere to be seen in the public eye. And the same thing for the day after the end of season press conference, as John Henry just continues to rack up these fan points and really any positive points.
Yeah, I agree. It's very hard to like have faith in somebody like that, to think they're going to do something for the team and everything like that. And then for somebody that has the amount of years that Joe does, like 42 years with that franchise being the voice of the Red Sox, and in all essential purposes, like that's who you hear. That's who everybody grew up listening to, was Joe. And the famous "Can you believe it?" during the 04 season.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not being there for, that's like not being there for your star employee when they're retiring and they did so much to watch your company grow, and all of a sudden last day comes, everyone's there and the CEO's not there to wish like a goodbye, like, hey, hope you have a good rest of your life kind of thing. Like that's just insanity to not be there for somebody that put in the blood, sweat, and tears of this man for 42 years just to be MIA.
Did John Henry even own the team back when he started? How long he's been doing it?
Oh, God, no. Henry was
That's what I'm
the
saying,
owner in 01 or 02.
It's crazy. Someone has dedicated that much time, even more time than you have, to your own team, and you can't be there and just say, congratulations, good luck. Here's a little silly golden plated medal that says you're awesome and you did all this for the Red Sox. Go hang it on your wall.
There is a plaque in the press box. I will give the Red Sox that much credit. There is a plaque calling it the Joe Castiglione.
Is there one for him to in his house, put on his wall? Did he come in there, deliver it to him?
Put it on a kitchen wall.
Yeah, right above the toolbox in the garage, But it's just crazy that that should. I'm stuttering. I don't do that a lot. There should have been a lot more respect there. There 100% should have been. Like, it's kind of infuming that he acted like that. And I mean, he's always acted like that. He's just lucky that Sidney Crosby's number's 87 and he signed for $8.7 million.
Still not over that. Here's the thing. It would be one thing if it was, the concession guy that started 10 years ago and, you weren't there. Fine, whatever. But this guy is among the longest tenured voices in baseball. He is the voice of some of your greatest successes. 04, 07, 13, 18, hell, 86 when, the Red Sox made that run into the World Series, and we know how that went. But still, he was the voice that season. This man has been the soundtrack of everything Red Sox baseball for 42 seasons, and you couldn't find it within your inner spirit to make an appearance because you were going to get booed or heckled or asked a real question by a reporter. Does John Henry not have the balls to show up in front of these fans and, take the punishment? No, he's going to continue to just sit up in his luxury suite or in his plane racking up money so people will buy his stupid championship hats like this. I mean, the team sucks anyways, so we'll throw that out for now. But if you can't really make an attempt to show up for 10 minutes to send off a guy that gave 42 years of his life calling this dumpster fire of a team for a lot of years, except for 5 or 6, then what's that say about you as a person? I mean, what's going to happen when John Henry steps down? I mean, are we going to have a send-off ceremony for John? I'd love to see what the fan feedback would be for that.
You went to the Winter Classic, so you know how just the Bruins and the Pittsburgh Penguins fan about John Henry alone. We don't need to bring up what was being chanted, but it was pretty loud at Fenway. So I don't think he would want to go anywhere where his fans are. Do it. Another one. Do it.
You know what? 2018, he called that one too. Yeah. Sorry.
Out the window.
I will say, Joe Castiglione, as I said, is a soundtrack for a lot of great successes for the Boston Red Sox. And, the Hats will probably be back next week. But still, it's just frustrating that the owner couldn't find it within himself. Just show up for 10 minutes, give him a cake and, say thank you for your time.
Don't forget about the trophy.
Right. I mean, I will say the one thing I will always kick myself for is I went to a Red Sox game last year, and I was waiting to meet someone there. And of all the people I bump into right outside Fenway Park is Joe Castiglione.
Really?
Didn't realize it until he walked down the street. And I said, that was Joe Castiglione. I should have said hi.
He fumbled that back.
Yeah.
See, if I saw Jack Edwards, I'd run right over him and ask him about how he's stabbing the blubber in the orca whale every time we beat the Whalers, a.k.a. the Hurricanes, when they play as the Whalers.
If I saw Jack Edwards, I would thank him
Sees how
for his
much
time.
of a fan you are, all right?
I'll enjoy watching Nesson with Jet Surratt on the call. On September 30th, MLB legend Pete Rose passed away at the age of 83 from what Nevada officials deemed natural causes. Rose was a 17-time All-Star, a 3-time batting champion, a Rookie of the Year, 3-time World Series winner, and also a MVP. World Series MVP. He played for Montreal, Philadelphia, but we all know him for his time with the Cincinnati Reds. 19 seasons with the Reds as a player. He was banned from baseball in 1989 when he was the manager for the Reds for betting on baseball. And we know his story since then. It took until 2004, 15 years later, for Rose to admit that he did bet on baseball. And he continued to try and, get his way into the Hall of Fame and basically not be excommunicated from the game of baseball. So now that Pete has passed away at the age of 83, a lot of people are wondering if, even though it would be posthumously, if now is a time to get Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame.
So before the show, we talked about him a little bit, and one thing that really stuck out to me was what you said, is it was a lifelong ban, and he's now sadly deceased. I mean, gambling is legal in just about every state now. You see all these players in football, in baseball. I don't know about basketball or hockey yet if anyone's been caught, but you see all these different players getting caught. And Calvin Ridley, I think they kind of overdid it with him, but there were definitely some situations where people could get in trouble for it, but I don't see it ever being more than a suspension. I know back then it was very illegal to gamble and all that, and you had to know people, blah, 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 blah. But it still doesn't matter. The stats you just said, he should be in the Hall of Fame, 100%. 100% in my eyes.
Yeah, so I'm 29 years old, so I don't really know a lot about Pete Rose and what transpired back then. So please correct me if I'm wrong, but I read a little bit about the situation, and then I also have seen situations from current day, either regarding like in NFL or NBA, where players have been betting on games and getting caught. I know the recent one in the NBA, that gentleman was on the Toronto Raptors, and I believe he got a lifelong ban.
Jonte Porter, I think it was?
Yes, something Porter. I know he got the lifelong ban. I think he got the lifelong ban, that gentleman in the NBA, because he was betting on games with his team or himself and making those bets based off of his performance. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but Pete Rose was doing something similar with like betting on the Reds and betting, and maybe when he was betting as a player, like betting on himself, like over unders, whatever the case may be. So again, there's the NFL situations where those players get caught. I don't know what they were betting on per se, but you see the years-long suspensions or the 6 to 12 game suspensions, and then they're right back in. You know what I mean? So I do think now he should go in, especially if we're going to be, let's be technical. Lifelong ban, unfortunately, the gentleman passed away. So are we still going to have to hold him to that regard when, like, that status? We said a lifelong ban. He's no longer with us.
The ban should be 100%. I agree with that.
Go along with the times. Sports gambling is very much legal. And should he have faced a punishment for it? Absolutely. Like, that's wrong. You're messing up the integrity of the game. You have everyday people using their hard-earned money to bet on these games, and you're telling me this gentleman can now just swing the bat a little slower or something like that, and bet on himself on the under or something like that. It ruins the fans' experience, in my opinion. But do I think he should be in the Hall of Fame? Absolutely no. And just reading that whole story, it should have never been a lifelong ban. Did it mess up the integrity of the game? Should it have been like 30 years or something like that? Absolutely. But if he was such an integral part of the game, as I've read and I've heard, it should have never been a lifelong ban.
We talked about this before the show too. I feel like we should air these like pre-show conversations, but that would be the show. I mentioned that it took 15 years for Pete Rose to admit that he gambled on baseball when he was the manager of the Cincinnati Reds, and we don't know about his time as a player. I still say if Pete Rose admitted this in 1991, 92, I wonder what that punishment would have been. The fact that it took 15 years and you're continuing to deny something that everybody already knew about, that is common knowledge, that is a punchline. If you admitted to this 2 years after, what that would have been? Would it have been, a lifetime ban from an active part of baseball, which you'd still be eligible for the Hall of Fame, but you wouldn't be able to manage or play or do anything like that? Now that we got to this point, looking back, I mean, ever since 2012, 2013, he tried to make his way back into the game. So much so that Philadelphia and Cincinnati would have events that would celebrate Pete Rose. You'd have Pete Rose Day. You'd celebrate the great Reds teams from the 70s and the 80s, and they would have to ask baseball for Pete Rose to be a part of that. So he brought this up in one of his interviews on CNN. Why is it okay for Pete Rose to be allowed into a baseball stadium to make money for owners, but it's not okay for Pete Rose to be a part of the Hall of Fame? And I understand Shoeless Joe Jackson, was a black eye on the game of baseball in the 1918 season, I think it was. 72 years later, he never made baseball's Hall of Fame. You have David Ortiz in the Hall of Fame. He's had history with PEDs and steroid involvement. I'm not saying he was a part of that big, steroid situation, but he did have some involvement in that. I think we can all agree with that. But he's in the Hall of Fame. I think at this point, you have to let some of these people in. Barry Bonds chasing Hank Aaron, the late 90s home run chase with McGuire and Sosa, this with Pete Rose. The game of baseball isn't squeaky clean like they perceive themselves to be. The game of baseball took hits, just like every other sport. And if you're going to go ahead and celebrate all the good stuff, you have to acknowledge the bad stuff. So if you have a plaque in Cooperstown for Pete Rose, you go through all these great things that he's done. The all-time hits leader for Major League Baseball. But you have to put in there, he was banned from the game due to betting as a manager. And I think that has to be acknowledged by Rob Manfred. Manfred has had kind of his own PR issues with baseball fans. If you allow Pete Rose in now, posthumously, it would obviously be too late. But I think that would be a step in the right direction for public perception for how people view the game of baseball and their history.
I mean, he's a very historical player. He definitely deserves to be up in there. I know it sucks, and especially when you're a manager, you definitely have more control when it comes to gambling on games. But maybe, as you brought up, if he said it a little earlier, then 15 years later, he'd be in the Hall already, and he would have been able to see it himself alive. But when you hold bad things in for that long, sometimes you don't deserve rewards, even for coming out, admitting it, you know.
Certainly a conversation that will continue to be discussed for years to come as Pete Rose passes away at the age of 83. We have overtime coming up next, and we will talk about the drama going on with the Boston Bruins and Cam Neely, Jeremy Swayman. I threw Red Sox hats earlier. We have a Bruins hat here that could fly. You never know. Red Sox hats will be back up. Don't worry. Overtime next. Time for overtime. John Luck, Jonathan Rodriguez, Brad McKinnon, and the Red Sox have had enough of a probation here. So for today, this part of the show, we'll just throw this right here. If you screw up and fire another longtime employee, they're back off the table, John. Let's talk about another great situation going on in the city of Boston. Jeremy Swayman and the Boston Bruins. September 30th, a great preseason press conference.
Great.
Charlie Jacobs, Cam Neely, Jim Montgomery,
Don
Sweeney, Bruins Brain Trust. And one reporter asks about the status of Jeremy Swayman. Cam Neely said, quote, "I strongly believe that Jeremy wants to play here. I've asked him flat out, do you want to play here? And he does. I believe that we'll get a deal done." He goes on to say, "I don't want to get in the weeds with what the ask is, but I know that I have 64 million reasons why I'd be playing right now," end quote. Mr. Bruins fan, what's your take on this?
Mr. Bruins fan, I wasn't happy. He's out there acting like Mike Babcock, which is not a fun guy that you want leading your team. I mean, he's led some teams to Stanley Cups, but he was also a head coach. But Cam Neely as a president, you don't see presidents acting like that. I mean, it's one thing when Don Sweeney kind of shuts his mouth on this subject and probably expected Cam Neely to, but Cam did not hold back, and it was pretty immature in my opinion. But at the same time, we don't know what Jeremy's saying because we haven't heard anything from him. He has probably the worst known agent in the NHL, who I believe took care of Torrey Krug when he sat till December 1st for us, which I talked about last week. I just forgot what the player was.
Louis Cruz.
Johnny Gaudreau, rest in peace. He screwed him over a little bit. And then William Nylander, it was last year or the year before, where not much different nothing really changed up till December 1st, and he said he regretted not even signing it. So, I mean, hopefully it doesn't go to December 1st. I was hoping when I saw this list that I was going to get breaking news within the 24 hours of reading it saying Jeremy Swayman has agreed to an 8x8, because if it's 64 million, you imagine that's what it is 8x8. At the same time, last night, too, there has started to be talks about the salary cap going up $4.25 million next season to, I think, 92, which makes this contract negotiation even harder because then, I mean, I don't even know if we have $8 million on cap right now. I don't believe we're a little under.
7.86 available in cap space this season.
Yeah, so when the 8x8 was brought up, the agent came out and said, we've never heard of that. Now there were rumors that there was an 8x7 7.75, which would make sense. But I mean, right now you might want to look at giving them that 7.75 and maybe 8.25 down the rest of the way. Because an 8.25, I think, in my opinion, would make both players happy. And I mean, I get what Jeremy Swayman's trying to do. He's trying to be like the running backs in football and try to protect the market there. But at the same time, there are plenty of other goalies that are just as good that get paid just about 8. You know, I mean, yeah, there's Serge Bobrovsky, Carey Price. There's one other one. I know Igor's, I think they're doing contract talks now over there, but there's one other goalie that's above the 8.5 mark.
I know there's a graphic for this that we actually had on one of the older episodes, so I'm sure it's on the screen now.
Yeah, but I really just want to see 8.25. I wanted 8x8 at first, but now, especially with him talking about bringing, they've been saying they're going to bring it up every year. Now it's rumored to be a big jump, which would help get some more money for the future years. You know, we might not have the money right now, but you can plan ahead of the future and say, hey, you're going to start 7x7.5 and 8.25, 8.25, 8.25, and who even knows? They might juice up the last 2 years at 8.5 because it would be up so much more by then, hopefully. But it's just sad. I mean, I think it was a meme, but Spittin' Chicklets posted something supposedly showing Don Sweeney, Cam Neely, and Jeremy Swayman sitting at a table. But it looked photoshopped pretty good, especially since Don Sweeney's tongue was out like that. When I saw that, I was like, that can't be real. But at the same time, I'm like, it could be with Don. Don's a guy that would look at you like,
I can imagine you just, looking at the phone. That's not Don. I know my Don.
Oh, yeah. When I saw, so at first, I shared it with all my friends, and I was like, And then I looked, 2 seconds later, I looked at it, and I was like, LOL, psych, that's not real.
I call this kind of a high-stakes game of poker in the past few weeks, and we continue to see them putting chips in at the center of the table, and we are yet to have a point here where we have a positive outcome for either side, Jeremy Swayman nor the Boston Bruins.
Yeah. Biggest thing is the team dynamic, and going into the season, this is not going to be good. Not at all. And then it's still, leverage is all on his side at the end of the day. They did a boneheaded decision. I'm not the biggest hockey guy, but they traded their one of their goalies without locking him up. Makes no sense. So now you're in this position where you come out bad, and it's not going to be good.
I mean,
I'm telling
Linus
you.
was only $5 million, too. And he was, they won the James Jennings Trophy 2 years in a row, I think, for the best goalie tandem. At least once in the last 2 years. I think they went 2 for 2. But it's just the whole fact that nothing was even halfway written up before Olmark left just shows how much they're failing. And I mean,
poor preparation. I mean,
I'm gonna
literally
take this hat right here and say, Mr. Jacobs, just take care of Cam Neely and get him out of here. I'm not gonna throw that hat. I love my team, unlike this guy right here.
But the Celtics are right here.
Yeah, all right. Why aren't they on your head? Huh?
I'm not a hat guy. You guys are the hat guys.
I
I will say this. I said Cam's an idiot for bringing up the $64 million, but let's kind of look at this from the player's perspective here. And, there was a statement released by Louis Gross later that day that said, normally I don't release statements or discuss negotiations through the media. However, in this case, I feel the need to defend my client. At today's press conference, $64 million was referenced. That was the first time that number was discussed in our negotiations. Prior to that press conference, no offer was made reaching that level. So there's a few different avenues I think we could go down. One, the player and the agent maybe stretching the truth a little bit. Maybe $64 million wasn't on the table. Maybe it was 8 times 7, like you brought up. Maybe a lesser value.
Yeah.
Maybe that was brought up. And Swayman wants to die on the hill that says, I'm going to be the highest priced goalie. I'm going to be the goalie that sets the goalie market, which would be great and awesome. Unfortunately, what's the one knock I've had on Jeremy Swayman during his time at the Boston Bruins? How many games has he played? He hasn't hit the 50 or 55 game mark for the regular season. He's been there for the playoffs, but if I'm going to go ahead and invest probably roughly $10 million or 10% of the salary cap on my team in you, I need to see something out of this. The Bruins obviously screwed this up with the arbitration stuff last season, but Jeremy Swayman has to realize that he is a great goalie. Unfortunately, he doesn't have, the lifetime stats like a Carey Price or, some of these other top names, Bobrovsky. Because in the case of Bobrovsky, he has won a cup, right? In the case of Carey Price,
he's been to at least 2 cups. I mean, Carey Price, they went to the cup in the bubble year.
Yeah, the fake cup final.
Yeah, the fake cup final.
But
thank you for saying it.
He got the teams there. They got their teams there. Jeremy Swayman, when given the reins, got the Bruins to the second round. And if I'm going to invest $8 million in that, then you need to get me further. But the Bruins screwed themselves over by this whole arbitration stuff. Now, let's look at the other players on this team. David Pastrnak is making $11.25 annually through 2031.
Which is cheap.
Right.
For a play. That's a good deal for us.
Elias Lindholm is making $7.75 AAV through 2031.
A little expensive, but free agent.
Right.
2 minutes into free agency, you pay extra money.
like
And
a-
we needed a 1C.
Yeah, it's like a free agent tax.
Yeah.
Your captain, Brad Marchand, is making $6.125 million.
And he'll probably make less than that, I bet.
And
with
you're
his
coming
new
in
contract.
and you're coming in here commanding around $8 million reportedly. I mean, if this goes on much longer and the Bruins end up starting the season off on the wrong foot because Junius Korpisalo is going to be the opening night goalie,
Don't remind me.
what's going to happen December 1st if Swayman, by some miracle, signs this extension? What is his reaction going to be from the Garden crowd? Is it going to be overwhelming cheers, or is it going to be boos, knowing that he probably could have taken $1 million off the table and just help out a little bit?
See, if he's there in December, so if this goes longer than a month, I can see us trading him, which I hate to say. I'm going to put that on record. I hate to say that, but I can see that happening. But if it comes in December, I bet you the Bruins fans aren't going to be booing, because that means he's locked down for a long time. But at the same time, they're going to be mad. Don't get me wrong, that they waited that long, and we're probably a 500 team, if that. I mean, hopefully this goalie's good. I will 100% die on that we have the best top 6 defensive lineup now in the whole league. I will, especially with Sidorov, a big guy like him. I mean, the top 4, 100% is the best. And we have Mason Laurie on 5 with Weatherspoon, and they're both, I mean, Mason Laurie's showing Cale Makar potential. One thing I do want to say on the Swayman contract, and this is nothing bad towards Brad Marchand, but if Patrice Bergeron was still our captain, he'd be signed. I almost want to guarantee he'd be signed, because Patrice would be doing more than the agent would be doing, which it seems like the agent ain't doing much, because you don't hear anything from the agent until Kim Neely had to come out and be unprofessional.
Still looking for updates. No Swayman updates. Sorry. It's almost at the point now where one side is going to batten down the hatches so much that they don't want to lose here. If you're the Bruins, at this point, you can't give Swayman $64 million, because now if you have another top-tier free agent coming out saying, I'm going to hold out for X amount of money, the Bruins say, well, we can't do that. You can go ahead and say, well, you did that for Jeremy. And in the case of Jeremy Swayman, you're going to go ahead and say, you know what, $64 million is my asking price. And you ask another team for that, and they're going to go, well, what have you done for $64 million? At some point here, it's just that awkward standoff between player and team, and we're at the point here where neither side wants to lose.
Which sucks, because there could, like I said, there could be a point. A lot of teams want Swayman. I know what you just said, but at least 20 out of the 32 teams would gladly trade first-round picks or anything to get him.
That's the other thing, trade compensation. What would you get for Jeremy Swayman that teams already know wouldn't play for you because he wants more money? I mean, teams are going to have the Bruins over the barrel here.
I don't think this is the NFL.
That's what I was
with
about to ask.
With second-round picks, I do believe, I mean, Linus Ullmark was traded for a first-round pick.
How does that work, though, for, like, a player? Because I know in other sports, like NFL, the player has to agree to basically go to that team.
Yeah.
Because you're agreeing to sign that team's also agreeing to basically contractually, like, sign you to a big deal.
So I'm not sure with Jeremy Swayman, but I know Linus Ullmark at one point had 16 teams on his no-trade clause. And that's one thing that you honestly don't like seeing your general manager give away all the time, but he always gives people no-trade clauses. You can pick how many, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, I'm not sure where Jeremy stands on if it's 6, 16, 30, you know. Mm-hmm. But it's the only thing that can really prevent a trade in the NHL is a no-trade clause.
Gotcha.
That they have in place. So I'm not aware of him even having one. I was aware of Linus Ullmark. I don't think Jeremy Swayman even has one in his. And I mean, he just did arbitrations too, so I don't think he has any because of the arbitrations. And I mean, speaking of the arbitrations, another reason why he's mad, he lost at least $1 million last year. At least $1 million, 100%.
Very possible we could find out if he actually has no trade list
Yeah.
when he could be getting traded.
Yeah.
But still over a month to go with that.
I saw a joke someone said online, yeah, Swayman's going to Ottawa for Linus Olmark. I was like, oh, jeez, at least we'll get a goalie for $5 million for 1 year.
They can have the hug on the tarmac.
Yeah.
Let's transition now to baseball. And, of course, the big news coming out of baseball is the Oakland Athletics no longer being the Oakland Athletics. They played their final game at the Coliseum last week, their final game for the city of Oakland, back on September 29th. They are preparing to move to Las Vegas after playing 3 seasons in Sacramento. I have a timeline here that I'll kind of make bullet points out of, but overall, this situation has just spiraled out of control, and it's taken 24 years to get to this point, but we're here, and it feels like there's no definitive winner in this whole process.
I feel bad for the city of Oakland.
I do too.
They had the Raiders, they had the Golden State Warriors, they had the Athletics, and not one of those teams resides there anymore.
Yeah,
you got San Francisco, and then now you'll have 2 Vegas teams. That's heartbreaking for a fan base and anybody that watches baseball. So, and on top of it, I watched my girlfriend's dad record that last game for the Oakland Athletics. So it just shows you how passionate the fans of baseball are about just that team.
Oh, just
period.
Oakland fans in general.
Yeah.
I mean, do you remember the Raiders? I know we're both younger, but the Raider fans,
Yeah.
they were crazy.
I
They
remember
dressed
that,
up. They
yeah,
had all the makeup.
that last
It was
season.
just about half of the fans that did that, too, not just dudes in the lower ring, you know?
Yep. But unfortunately, everything's about money, and that's why you got the movement of
Moving to
teams
Vegas,
and
100%.
moving to Vegas,
Right.
like the bottom line and what you can charge now, and that stadium. The stadium's ridiculous, but you lose such a pivotal part of your fan base. I'm not saying they can't travel, but at the same time, like that's like taking your
No season ticket
core.
owner wants to
Yeah,
drive
like,
that far.
You got to think like the San Diego Chargers, same situation. You move to LA, and like, are those really fans? Are they like? It's that statement that a lot of
they
fans
have
call it.
they
It's like
have
the
2
transplant
teams for
fans.
crying out loud
Yeah,
out
it's like,
there.
are we real fans? My biggest thing, especially because I moved to a city in Boston that like you see passionate fans. I was a Patriots fan before I moved here a couple years ago, but you see the die-hard fans and you see how much passion they have, and you see how we talk about the Patriots or the Bruins or the Celtics, and you see the amount of passion we have for that. And I feel like you lose that when you take teams out of somewhere they've been for so long. That's like bringing the Patriots to
Hartford.
Orlando,
St. Louis.
Florida, or St. Louis. Like,
Well, the Celtics,
yeah,
they're
you're-
moving out of town, you know?
it makes no sense, and you're losing that fandom, that core. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with him on just about everything. It's really sad to see it happen. I mean, as he said, they had 3 teams, they now have none. I don't know, I mean, these guys, they can disappear, I'll be fine.
That was Brad that time.
But if the Celtics, Bruins, or what, you want me to do it again?
No, I'm just making balance. We need to have like balance here. You can't have one head on this side.
I'll buy you a new one in case I scuffed it, all right?
For everything that we say about John Henry being a brain-dead buffoon,
Oh, their
John
owner's
Fisher
worse.
is a cheapskate. John Fisher is a con artist. So this is kind of a multifaceted thing. This team was going to move, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times before ultimately they moved to Vegas. In 2000, the owners before Fisher discussed the possibility of moving the team to San Jose. In 2002, relocation efforts moved back, or brought back to the move, and they were going to move the team to downtown Oakland. 2005, this is when this all starts to click into high gear. John Fisher is part of an ownership group that buys the A's. They said they would build a new stadium in Oakland. Okay. The team, 1 year later, announced that they were going to have plans to build a 32,000-seat stadium in Fremont, California. We don't know where Fremont is, right?
I don't.
So, what's that?
I don't.
Okay, so I did a little map quest here. This is the equivalent of Boston to Lowell. Not a terrible ride, but still, it's a trip.
Not a fun one.
Right. It's almost like going San Diego to Los Angeles. But that gets scrapped due to delays and opposition. In 2012, the team was rumored to go back to San Jose. MLB declined that request. Awesome. 2014, the A's ultimately signed their last lease with the Coliseum, so it's a 10-year lease. And in 2018, the Oakland A's proposed a new stadium on the waterfront, but they were met by pushback by waterfront business owners. So I'm giving John Fisher a hard time for everything I called him. But Oakland didn't help out that cause either. And the business owners that could have made money off having the Oakland Athletics across the street from them, they didn't help out the cause either. But this does go without saying, John Fisher didn't help his cause at all because he didn't make one improvement to that stadium. The only thing he changed was the last game of the season, he didn't open up Mount Davis there where you had the tarps over the last few rows of the stadium. John Fisher fumbled this because you could have easily said, okay, I'm going to knock down the Oakland Coliseum. We're going to demolish it. But it's going to be a 5-year project. During that time, we're going to move the team to Sacramento while we go ahead and rebuild, and they'll be right back in the same address in 2029, 2030. Unfortunately, the city of Oakland continued to shoot themselves in the foot. If you look outside the Oakland Coliseum, there's a train station, a junkyard, and I think like a Lexus dealer. That's not really appealing. Oakland could have helped out the A's by putting some type of development down there, try and be a draw for a baseball team. This feels like it's a two-way street, but both sides were afraid to go down the street. Week 5 of the NFL season is upon us. The Jets and the Vikings playing a game across the pond in London at 9:30 in the morning. Vikings coming in as a 2.5-point favorite.
Yeah, it's the hardest game for me to pick personally. Both defenses are playing great, in my opinion, and Aaron Rodgers, he has experience with those teams, but I think Minnesota drops the Jets to 2-3.
So I'm going to be devil's advocate here. Aaron Rodgers right now is the worst QB in a New York team compared to Daniel Jones and Josh Allen. You can look at the stats.
Over here.
Hot takes. But like I said last week, it was going to be Travis Kelce's comeback game. I know it wasn't 100-plus yards, but he had 87 yards or something like that. I think Aaron Rodgers wakes up. Him and Wilson have 2 touchdowns.
I'm taking the Vikings in this one. Sam Darnold gets his revenge on the Jets.
Hey, Sam Darnold's been playing great.
Buffalo and Houston,
Yes.
basically a pick 'em. Who you got?
Buffalo will rebound after that beating. I do think they will. Houston's a great team, great defense, and great potential on offense. But I do think the Bills will bounce back from that little beating they got from the Ravens.
I do think Houston being an underdog in this game is fishy to me regarding spreads and everything like that. But if you're going to give me a point for them, I'm going to take them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take Houston. I can see Buffalo winning, but I will lean Houston side. So
It is a pick 'em,
Yeah.
in my opinion, 100%.
For the sake of the Patriots, I would hope Houston wins, and I think they will win. Buffalo, I think something's going on there. I'm not exactly sure what, but I think Houston comes out with the win. Dolphins and Pats and Foxborough, who you got?
ugly, ugly, ugly game, and I have Miami winning outright. So
What's the spread, 1 point or something?
Pick 'em, yeah. Patriots are a 1-point favorite.
That quarterback in Miami is worse than ours.
Snoop or
it's not Thompson anymore. It's Huntley.
Huntley, that's
Yeah.
what it was,
Yeah.
yeah. Wasn't a fan of watching him just look like a doofus. So I am going to say we win our second and probably final game of the year.
So the point of this segment is to pick winners. If anyone actually comes out on top, do we consider that a win? I'm going to phrase it this way. At the end of the game, be it 60, 65, 66 minutes, I think the Patriots will have more points than the Dolphins, but it has to be characterized as a win. So I'll take the Patriots to have more points than the Dolphins. But As I said to my dad, who's a Dolphins fan, during that Monday night game, if anyone wins, do they actually win? I think we'll have the same case of that.
Horrible. I hope we get
buckle
a
up
little
for
better than
a
that.
repeat Sunday afternoon
Buckle
at
up,
1.
Buckaroo.
I'll take it, though. I took the Titans, so.
Another meme for Will Levis, too.
Yeah, I know.
No, they don't stop that poor guy.
We'll be back here to talk about it at some point. Who knows if we'll even talk about this game. Either way, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.